I'm Marilyn Parker with Marilyn Parker Ministries YouTube channel, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. I want to welcome you, all of you who are tuned in, and certainly I'd like to welcome my guest today to our first YouTube show. And this show is going to be a mother's segment. We are celebrating mothers today, and we are celebrating mothers that have children that have transitioned. So we want to be sure that we come, encourage one another, and encourage all of you who are tuned in. And we're going to just jump right in. I'd like for my guests to introduce themselves to you. So we're going to begin with my guest that's on the left.
I am Rhonda Robinson.
I am Mildred Young.
I am Yolanda Carrington.
I am Bernita Fowler.
I'm Dr. Denezla Dorsey. I'm an author and a psychotherapist, and I have been practicing for about 30 years now, and I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Being here.
Yes.
Thank you. And we're excited to have Dr. Dorsey with us. And so we're going to go right to Rhonda. And we're going to ask you to tell us a little bit about your journey.
My journey started in 2018. My youngest son, or our youngest son, Breon Robinson, was actually murdered in the city of St. Louis. And his murder is still unsolved. And it's been a journey. It's been a emotional, a mental, a spiritual. It's been a journey. Breon was actually found. His body was found in a dumpster, burnt. So we actually had to identify him with his dental records. So it's just that was enough. And I can remember sitting I can remember sitting, eating dinner, looking at the news when I actually saw them say that they had found a body in the dumpster. And the first thing I said, whoever it is, they couldn't have did anything that bad to deserve that, not knowing that it was my child. So that's where my journey started. And it's a never-ending journey.
You're exactly right.
And Mildred, we'll move on with you.
My son, Tyrone Williford, was an athlete. He had been the co-captain of the basketball team at North County Tech. He ran track, came in second in state, and had never been ill. So in November of 1998, he became really lethargic and tired all the time. He was one that was always on the go. He just went. And finally, in January, it took a while because we thought he had a cold. He went to the doctor, and in the emergency room, they came and told us that he had acute myeloid leukemia. And their first question to me was, do you have any questions? Of course, I didn't have any questions because I didn't know anything about it. So he progressed. He would get better. He would get sick. He would get better. He would get sick. So we decided to have a bone marrow drive because black people have the lowest percentage of bone marrow donors than anyone else. So we threw a big bone marrow drive. We had over 300 people to come. We have about 6 kids. None of our kids were a match. Nobody at the bone marrow drive was a match. The best match is a 7 out of 7 match. So they did find a 6 out of 7 match, and he was given a bone marrow transplant. And he, being who he is, jumped right back in. He was one of the quickest recoveries they've ever seen. They had a big to-do at the Chase Park Plaza, and he was honored there because of his recovery. But by May, his body rejected the bone marrow. So back to the hospital we went. He was Jewish at the time. They had a special floor for people with leukemia. And I moved in practically. I work as a teacher, so I'm out for the summer. So I was at the hospital 24/7. They didn't know if I worked there or what my position was. Once the bone marrow was rejected, he just got sicker and sicker. And I can remember sitting at his bedside, and he would moan, and they give you that morphine thing, and it only drips every so many minutes. Every time he moaned, I'd push it because he couldn't push it himself. I knew it wasn't doing anything, but it made me feel better, so I would push it. But eventually, they said there wasn't anything else they could do. My daughter called me from work. School had started back, and she called me at work and told me that they said they couldn't do anything else and it was time. So I decided I wasn't going to leave school because I knew that as long as I stayed there, he wouldn't go anywhere. He was going to wait for his mama to get there. That was a fact, and he did. And we went to the hospital. I didn't want to see him take his last breath. So my daughters and I had gone out because one of my daughters had become so overcome. And then they came and got us, and they told us that he was gone. And we went back into the room and sat there. I sat there until they forced me to release him. I just didn't want to let go. But God has taken me through it all, and without God, I don't know how I would have made it. I sometimes think I'm dreaming, and I sometimes say, well, I wish he hadn't gone, but then I think about the fact, if he had to suffer like some of the other people we would see at the clinic, that wouldn't have been for him. You're good and going well one day, and then the next day, you can just barely breathe, or you can't move, you can't drive, you can't do anything. So I thank God that he blessed me with him for 23 years.
My son's name is Aaron Leonardo Williams. He was 39, born in November the 13th, 1982, and transitioned on January the 28th, 2021. My son, Aaron Williams, we called him the gentle giant. He was tall, like 6'7", kind, gentle, just very caring. Around 2021, my mom passed away, and she was pretty much the matriarch of our family. And my children pretty much grew up around my parents. And family was everything to him. And after she passed, Aaron changed a little bit. And we shortly after that found out that he had schizophrenia. From a result of that, Aaron, he was a very determined young man. He really was. He was determined to be normal like everyone else. And he refused to, Mom, I want to be independent. I want to take care of myself. So I coached him through all of that. He got his own apartment. He got his GED. He even went to and had a desire to join the Air Force during that time. And he took the test and scored the highest. Well, those recruiters were calling him to do everything that we had to do to get him signed up. At that time, he had a few things we had to take care of, like traffic tickets, things like that. And then life happened. My son had his own apartment. He was living his life, but I constantly checked on him. So this one particular morning, we were going to be together that day, just running around things, laundromat, grocery store. I always still check to make sure his apartment was clean, all of that. And that morning, I couldn't get him on the phone. I'm checking, AJ, I'll be there to pick you up around noon, leaving messages. And my daughter called, which is his twin sister, Arena Williams, called and said, Mom, Aaron is not responding. And I just went into the mom mode. I know, I've been calling him all morning. I'm going to get him. He hasn't answered the phone. And she said, it was just the way she said it. Mom, Aaron, AJ is not responding. And she kept saying that until it just struck me of what she was actually saying to me. So immediately, I got in the car, went over to his apartment to find paramedics, police officers, all outside the door. My son, by that time, my oldest son, LaRon, had gotten there, and he walked in his apartment with me. And there he was, lying on the floor with paramedics all around him, trying to bring him back to life. In my mind, immediately, all I could think about is one of our childhood teachers, Miss Hortense Carroll. She told me this story, and then immediately it kicked in. And I prayed. I was saying, Father, in the name of Jesus, I rise. I was commanding my son to get up. And I didn't know what else to do, but at that moment was to pray. Because I just wouldn't accept that he's lying there on the floor. And for a moment, maybe it was in my mind, I thought I saw him move. But the paramedics said they couldn't continue to try, and there was nothing else they could do. Later on, weeks later, with the autopsy, I found out that my son had passed from fentanyl. And at that time, I just, had no awareness of what that was, how it affects you. I know it just killed my son. So this journey that we're walking through right now, I am still learning how to talk about it. And I thank God for these women right here. Just this short time that we have been together, they have taught me so much still of how to walk through this life, trusting God, knowing that I know where He is. That is the one thing that gives me some courage and happiness, is knowing where He is now. But when I wake up in the morning some days, He's not physically here with me. And that is the journey that I'm learning to live. And I thank God that He holds my hand daily.
And I believe that most of us, all of us, I know me, so let me just talk about me. I feel exactly where Yolanda is. And speaking of journey, people always say with time you get better. And, I don't know so much. I guess it can be time, but I think it's learning a process, learning what to do, when to do it, exactly when to do it, how you're feeling. I think this is one real self-care class we get to be in, because we get to learn to stop, sit in it, We get to know that, hey, it's okay if today I feel like just sitting here crying and pulling out his photos. I'm going to pull those out. I'm going to take a look at them. I'm going to look through them, and it's okay if I cry. It's okay if I cry. Because the title of this show is A Mother's Love is Forever. And we will forever love our children. Here, you know, a lot of times we say things like, I love you beyond the grave. You have no idea. And people really shouldn't say that. You don't have a right to say that because you don't know. But we love that for. And you love in the same way. I often say, I love my son like the day he was born. And he is present with the Lord now. He's not here anymore.
So what you are describing, what each of you are describing, and I know you're going to tell your story as well, you are describing the journey of experience of what often people are calling today trauma. We're talking about a womb, and we're talking about when you experienced your son transitioning. That is called acute trauma, and it's psychological neurosis. That means there is an instant loss. And so the brain automatically goes into shock. When you described your baby in the medical journey that he has experienced, not only does it experience for him, but it also is an experience on the entire family. That is known as chronic trauma. And so that means that it is a continuation of the family having to go through different parts of that. When you talked about experiencing your son and his mental health crisis as well, that is also a form of acute. So you're talking about a double whammy here. You're talking about acute trauma and chronic trauma because your son was dealing with a mental health crisis. On top of that, when we start talking about fentanyl, we're talking about persons often find themselves using drugs in order to self-medicate because of the psychotropic medication. So it ends up that that person is dually diagnosed. And so you've said it, it is absolutely, this is a journey. And Marilyn talked about time. Time does not heal all wounds. That is a cliche. What time does is time exposes the severity of it. And what time does, it reveals how intense the womb is. But I want to commend you. First of all, grieving is a part of love. And Marilyn said that so eloquently. This is not something you're going to ever get over. You're not. But you will be able, with the right resources and the support of each other, you will be able to walk through it. And some days it's moment by moment. Some days it's minute by minute. Some days it's hour by hour. And as Marilyn said, sometimes you have to allow yourself to just sit in that and experience that and allow your body to know exactly what is going on. So I thank you so much for allowing me to be here.
Thank you for being here.
So my son Cameron, we call him Cam, he was killed on December 9th of 2018. It is a night I'll never forget. You know, there's still sometimes I go back through the whole process of it. The phone rang at a little after 1 in the morning. At the same time the phone rang, my daughter-in-law was banging on my bedroom door. Mama, get up, Cam's been shot. So we jump up, you know, we're trying to get to where he was. She, of course, gave us all the information. And it wasn't far from the house. She called me once again, right when we were getting ready to get into the truck to go there, and she said, Cam's dead. So we knew on the way there that he was dead. And, you know, things started going through my mind. I'm like, who would shoot him? You know, and why they would shoot him? And, you know, it must have been a mistake or an accident, or, you know, he was just, just everything was going through my mind. Me and my husband, we got there. My oldest son, he also had been called, and he was back there as well. Cam was the baby. It was really hard, you know. He had come to the house. Well, he still stayed at home. So before he went out, he'd come through the house and he'd give me this little head thing, you know. He didn't even have to say anything, like, Mom, I'm leaving, you know. He just, and he walked back out the house, and that was the last I saw. He never came back through that door. So, you know, I spent a lot of time talking with God, just trying to understand, you know, why Cam, you know, or just, you know, making it day by day. He had finished Rankin. We were so proud of him. He had graduated from Rankin. My husband had an auto body shop, and he, of course, he had worked throughout the years, and the fact that he chose to do that. I mean, my husband had wanted one of the boys to come into that field, and he was the one. So it was hard, you know, but me, my husband, and my son, you know, we just all held on to each other. So many people prayed us through it. It is still days where I think to myself that he's really not here. You know, I just, I mean, it's been years, but there's still those days where I'm like, you know, it's just hard to believe that he's really not here. I am thankful to be here. I'm thankful for Maryland. I've already said these mothers are now my new sisters. So, you know, and yeah, we're just taking it day by day. God is good. He's still good. Yeah.
So one thing that happens when we're talking about the grieving process, because there's definitely a difference between grief and grieving. When you first experience hearing about it, answering that phone call, having to deal with the fact that you've heard that your child is no longer here, the brain and the body goes into shock. It goes into shock. Your, what we call your prefrontal cortex, it shuts down. And not only does it shut down, but it causes the whole body to go into a survival. And so once your brain and body has gone into grief, it has to go through a rewiring process to even get to the grieving. And so the grieving process is like what you guys are able to do right now, able to talk about it, able to reflect, because there's two things that's going to go on that still will ever go on, is that there's an emotional memory. You will remember the emotion that you felt. Even right now in telling this story, I am assured that some of you are experiencing that same emotion, maybe not with the same intensity that you felt that moment. That is an emotional memory. That's exactly what the brain is designed to do. The second thing that that brain is designed to do is it's going to have an episodic memory. That means that you remember every detail of that experience. You know the time, you know the date, there may be smells, there may be songs. All of those things will sometimes re-trigger you. Have you guys had the re-triggering? Yeah, yeah. And so what happens is that when we're in the grieving process, your brain is still dealing with the attachment. So there's attachment of time, and then there's attachment of space, and then the attachment of the individual and your loved one no longer physically being here with you. And so you have to train your body and your brain to move through that as you continue to live. And I like to call it reframing. It's your new normal. It's your new life, learning to live in a space of the grieving process.
And that is probably, and I know all of the ladies here, and I guess it's probably the same thing, you know, just your, I don't know, your thoughts on it, your perspectives on it, your ability, also your ability, because all of it is a process.
Yes, it is.
You know, and even though everyone knows that I'm one of those big, I always say, I never say my new normal. I'm big on that. And I say that because I don't want to feel like, and for me, I interpret it that my son not only is gone, he's no longer my son. That's how I interpret it. So I don't attach myself to that, but I understand what is meant by that. What I've had to do is learn to realize that my life as is, he has transitioned.
Right.
So there are other ways. You know, I said the first thing I did, first I wanted to say, my son's name was Larry Parker, or is Larry Parker. He transitioned in July of 18. He also was murdered on his job. No one knew or knows what happened. Everything is still going on. One of the first things I had to do in my journey of shock, because I was first in shock, but I think what really helped me was I was in shock, but just so attached to the Lord helping me that's just why I went to everything that I knew about the Lord. And my first thing was, Lord, please don't let me lose my mind, because I could realize that everything was coming apart inside of me. So the first thing I prayed was, Lord, don't let me lose my mind. And then it seemed to me to be that the Holy Spirit let me know, hey, calm down. Absent from the body is present with the Lord. I then went into, he here anyway, because God is here.
Right.
So when the police was here trying to tell me what was going on, absent from the body, present with the Lord. So though there be a body laying out on the street, I don't have to worry about it being Larry per se, because his spirit is gone. So that's just was where I went and where I stayed. But he remains to be my son. And I've had to move in different ways. One thing I found, I was totally in shock for years.
Absolutely. You
For
can be
about
in
2
shock.
years.
Yep, you can be in shock
and,
for a long
and
time.
able to live, able to go to work. That's why I say people don't change, nothing changes around you, you change. In the process, you change. You know, you begin to say, I think of where Yolanda is, I'm telling you, probably where you are in that period of time, I probably would have felt like I can't do that. Call me the next time you do it, Yolanda. But the reason why I could say, no, Yolanda, I know you can do it. It's because I know what it takes to do it. I know it's a mind to do it. But back then, we're surrendered to everything. You know, if I feel and say, lay down, you cannot get up, we lay down and we can't get up. If I feel and say, call in, you can't make it today, we call. But
That's exactly right.
But as the process goes on, you find out whether it's by faith, not whether it's by faith, by my faith, that you can do this, that God is with you.
And everybody's process is different.
Uh-huh.
Everybody's process in this grief and grieving, it looks totally different, because some people never ever experience shock, because your brain, the only thing your brain knows is that she is in pain. And your brain is going to operate the way that it has learned how to operate when you have been in pain. Your brain doesn't know how to differentiate from whether you're in pain at 15 or whether you're in pain at 45. Your brain is just saying, she's in pain, so I have to go and protect her. And that is why you experience so many emotions. And in this process, you have to learn how to not always allow your emotions to take over, because your emotions are not factual. They're actually designed to be 90 seconds. 90 seconds, every emotion. And so what ends up happening is your emotions are looping. Your emotions are looping. And so people tend to call the same emotion. So for instance, when you're in the grieving process, sadness can also look like frustration. Sadness can also look like anger. And so being able to identify, and that's why I said learning how to sit in this, and Marilyn has heard me say that, understand what emotions are you feeling in this moment, and what are the byproducts of that emotion.
And you know what? It's so true that everybody do grieve differently. And with me, you know, that it was a process, because Breon was missing at first. So he was missing. But the day the day that I found out that it was him, when my feet hit the floor, my body, my spirit hadn't even caught up with my mind, because I wouldn't let my mind tell me anything. I wouldn't let my mind tell me anything other than he just didn't want to be bothered with anybody. So that's why he wasn't answering his phone. But my body and my soul, instantly when I got up that morning, let me know that Breon had transitioned. And it's so true. It was like my mind had to catch up with my body.
Exactly right.
And then it didn't catch.
No.
It was hours, because
That's exactly
I
right.
literally
It's called emotional hijacking. So what ends up happening, your lower part of your brain, which is the medulla oblongata, survival brain, it hijacks the entire brain. As I said, it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, which is your executive brain, and it causes you to go into action. And so, because the brain and the nervous system is aligned, your body may be already moving, and your brain might be somewhere else already in
Yep.
that process.
That's exactly what happened to me. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
Dr. Darcy keeps saying, Marilyn's heard me say that, and I get a chance now to remind everybody to please hit the subscribe button. And then I want to tell you just real quick about with Dr. Darcy. You know, when I first went through all of this, I felt like I'm gonna be okay. Keep praying, keep going to church, going to work, doing what I'm doing. On and on. I had many people to tell me I need to go to therapy. And I felt like, God is good. He's taking care of me. If God wasn't already taking care of me, I wouldn't even be here for you to tell me that. So I felt like I'm okay. But I had something to happen to me maybe in that 2.5 year span, that when I finished, God had blessed me so that I hung up and I thought, whoo, boy, about a year ago, it would have drove me. But I was better. And I thought, I'm finna go to therapy. I'm gonna keep getting better. And I knew it wasn't none but God, because I didn't believe in therapy per se. I didn't know about it, but I wasn't going. So I was recommended to go to Dr. Darcy. And I always will remember when I called her and she called me back, and I called her back again. Because I'm like, if you have any appointments before Friday, I need to go now. Now that I made up my mind I want to go, and, don't do like these doctors do us, So she said, well, I got something Monday. She said, I have something Monday. If you can come today at 6 o'clock. I said, okay, but let me tell you now. I don't want to talk about my son, because I'm thinking about laying back on the couch. I don't want to talk about my son. I don't want to talk about my father, who had transitioned a week after my son. I don't want to talk about my mother, who had just transitioned. She said, oh, we're not going to talk about that if you don't want to. I thought, okay. But I hung up and I thought, well, we ain't going to talk about that. What are we going to talk about?
That's right.
And I'm telling you, it blessed me so to find out we were going to talk about me. Because it's me that's got to learn. I mean, me, everything about me, how I'm going to walk through this. And like I said the other day, not only be present, because I was present a lot of places. I was still working. I was still going out serving people, helping, whatever I could do, because it's who I am or was, right? So those things are habits. Some of those things you just do out of habit and where you should be. I was still going to church. People were still speaking. But I needed to be present.
That's right.
I need to be present.
Actively
I don't need to be where this is taking that time, or I know how to do this, I'm doing this. And then when I get back home, I sit back, look at TV or whatever, and I could think about them as much as I want. I need to control, my mind, what I want to say and think and do. And I found out that it's a process I have to be totally invested in. I have to be the best I can be. And we have this cup. I always say we got this cup, and water drips all day. And as we go, my cup is bigger, I think. So, but when it comes, it just comes. And it can be like the day it happened. It just, so I don't think we'll ever stop. I don't know if I'm using the right word, grieving, grief, whatever it is.
You'll never
but-
stop grieving.
Okay, grieving, missing my baby,
That's right.
like I did the day I heard it.
That's right.
But never will I stop loving him that way,
And
either.
grieving is love.
I love
The
that.
grieving process is love.
So be free, grieve, be free, grieve,
Yes.
everybody. Love, my
Yes.
mother's love is grief. We're gonna turn that around. It's gonna be everywhere next year, all over the billboard.
Yeah.
Grief is love. Have you grieved today? Love, no.
Are you grieving? Not
Are you
grief.
grieving? Are you
That's right.
grieving
Because
today?
grief will have you stuck.
Okay.
Grief will have you stuck to a place where you become incapacitated. Grief will have your physical body shut down, where you can have a heart attack, you can have a stroke. Grief will have you on psychotropic medications. Grief will have your liver to shut down. Grief will have you to go into a dark place of depression. So much so that the rest of your life you stop living. And so when we talk about what we are referring to today, we're not talking about grief. Because when I look around this room and I look at you, beautiful ladies, you're not stuck in grief. You are grieving.
I agree with that. I've been grieving. It'll be 25 years in
Yeah.
August. And some days it seems like it was yesterday.
Yes, that's right.
Other days I feel like, okay, I can make it. And I've expressed to the ladies, my family, we talk about him all the time.
That's right.
He's an integral part. It's always, well, if Tyrone was here, this is what he
That's
would
exactly
have done.
right.
This is what he would have said. And I was telling them I'm an introverted griever. Most people don't see me grieve. I have that persona like everything is great and
So
wonderful.
where did you learn that? Because that's a pattern.
don't
That's a
know.
coping strategy.
Probably from my mother.
Well, your mother,
and
that's exactly right.
My mother's side of the family, if we went to funerals, you got to talk. None of that hooping, hollering, and
That's
screaming.
right.
You just don't do that. So I did my grieving, as I expressed with them, in the shower.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when there was no one home but me. I had 2 older children and 2 younger children. My son was right in the middle. So I couldn't let the younger ones
That's
see
right.
me grieving.
So
My
that's that
oldest
pattern.
daughter was, she just would lose it. So I had to grieve by myself in the shower where I could holler and scream and cry. And then when I came out, I was Mildred.
So that's that, and that right there, our brain learns from 5 areas. So when we talk about how our brain learns from the environments, especially the environment that we grew up in, the environments that we are part of. It learns from our primitive relationships, the people who raised us. It could be big mama, granddad, and uncle. It learns from our genetic predisposition, and then it learns from our experiences and our social. So our brain develops, it's called neurological patterns. And so this is how you began to operate in the world. And so when you talked about your grieving process and how you dealt with grief, and I asked you, where did you learn that? That was a neurological pattern that you learned, because our brain doesn't just, all behavior is intentional. Everything we do, it comes from a place. Oftentimes we'll say, well, I don't know why I did that. But really our brain, how our brain works is our thoughts are connected to an experience. Our thoughts connects to a feeling. Our feeling connects to a response, which is our behavior. And that becomes our cognition, how we see the world, how we respond to the world, and how we feel about the world.
And I've learned that with Dr. Dorsey. And it's helping me. It's really helping me. Even before I act. Do I really want to do that, or is that a habit? And is it serving me? Because we do so many things that, like, my grandmother, it may have come from my grandmother, my mother, or my father, because it came from somewhere. And is it something I want to keep doing and teach others to do? Before we get to that wrap-up spot, I do want to ask everyone, if it's something you would say to the mothers that are watching, that are in this transition, what is it that each one of us would say? And I want you to take about a minute and a half. Just go straight to the point, like you're talking to them right now. And what would you tell them so they know, celebrate Mother's Day? You are a mother. You're a great mother. Celebrate Mother's Day. In the midst of it all, celebrate Mother's Day. So we'll begin with you, Rhonda.
I would say knowing how much life that not only Breon but all of our sons had in them. I know for a fact that Breon would not want me to waddle in grief. He wouldn't, because he lived his life and he lived his life to the fullest. It hurts every single day. I think about Breon every single day, just like I think about my other two sons that are living. But what I would say, at least try. Just try. I'm not saying take the whole day and try to make the whole day your day, but just try to take a portion of the day and take that, even if it's just 20 minutes of the day, Mother's Day, because 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, you were a good mom to your child that actually transitioned. And your child would not, I refuse to believe that any mother that have lost a child, that child would not want their mom to enjoy Mother's Day. So I am asking each and every mom to take that baby step. If that's what you need, take a baby step and go to the grocery store and get you a flower, a rose, just one little rose if that's what you need, So that's what I would say.
I would say find joy, because the joy of the Lord is my strength. My favorite scripture, Habakkuk 3:17, scriptures, Habakkuk 3:17 through 19, and it talks about loss and what you don't have. But as long as you have the joy of the Lord, you can be strengthened if you will rest in it. If you got to cry, if you got to scream, do whatever it is that it takes. That's your day, and it's about you. If you have other children, they want to celebrate with you. So show them that in spite of where I am and what I'm going through, I'm going to have this joy being with you, because they need you too. So that's the thing. Find you something, as Rhonda said, that brings you joy. If it's a song, if it's a scripture, if it's looking at the pictures of your children, surrounded with your grandchildren. Grandchildren bring you joy. They bring you joy. So find something to be joyful for that day and share it with your family. Don't dwell in your grief. Grieving will be here on Monday. Do your grieving on Monday, but on that one day, put a smile on your face, not a fake one, and have joy.
Well, what I'm going to say, I'm still, like everyone said, you go through a routine. I think I'm going through the routine since his death. And that was what kind of got me through. But what I'm realizing now, it was just getting me through. It was like, not like I'm on stage, but it wasn't, no one knew really what was going on the inside of me.
That's right.
How I was really hurting. But I watched my mother go through things, her sisters go through things, and be strong. I thought that was being strong, to get up and continue on. So during this time, I can say that the quietness really helped me. It was through, I did finally go to Grief Share, thanks to the cameraman and Miss Merlin over there. And I honestly, it was a step. It helped me with a step of really realizing that grief is stages. And to just be in that stage. And at that time, this stage that I was in, I just wanted to sit in my room and be with God. And it was that music that I played in the middle of the night receiving Marilyn's call. I'm going to keep telling them about you because she would call me in the middle of the night to see if I was okay. I had many people doing that, and I don't want to call names because it's a long list. But she's here right now. And that helped me. It got me to another stage. And now I'm trying to learn how to help my surviving children that are still here
Yes.
learn how to get through this life.
Yes.
So, my first Mother's Day, oh my goodness, I had to work. And because I would have just stayed at home because I wasn't ready for Happy Mother's Day because I was not happy. So that was the first time I really broke down in public because I, like you, did my crying at home, my privacy. But God was good. I mean, I had someone there that took me into a little place and prayed me, and I got through that rest of that day. I would say my whole first year was hard. I've done better with Mother's Days, but I still I might be a little stuck. You know, I still feel that part of mothering missing. You know, so I still miss that on Mother's Day. Of course, you know, I love on my son that's alive and my grandkids and my son's daughter, but I still do have some sorrow on Mother's Day. It's like a good and a bad. You know, I'm thankful for having them, you know, and having all these memories, having whatever time I had with them. And, you know, I remember him, I remember his laugh, I remember it's all these things I still have, but there's still a little of me that still on Mother's Day misses him, and it hurt. That part does still hurt.
I would say give yourself space to heal and then give yourself grace to heal. So be gentle with yourself at this time, understanding that the grieving process is normal, it's natural, and it's necessary.
I think everything has been said. I want to remind everyone to hit the subscribe button, but I do want to come back and say to do as Dr. Darcy said, and also be intentional to love on yourself. It's okay. Love yourself like you would your child. You would be telling your child, hey, it's going to be okay. Come here. Let me hold you for a minute. You be sitting down. Come on. You want to go and get some, let's go get something. Do the same thing for you. Take time to be a part of your healing. Invest in getting better. Know that I got to do something to feel better. And I do, you know, the same. I set myself up so I'm at least better than what I wouldn't be if I didn't. If I didn't encourage myself. If I didn't just sit there and say, hey, you know, because I know Mother's Day is coming. Every day is coming. It's not just Mother's Day. It's every day. That's right. And every day he's not here. And every day just about I think about him. And I have to have a way to get out of every day. I have to have a way to say, you know, but I know where he is. And right now, it's always my prayer, God, I thank you. He's in perfect peace. And Lord, put me in peace. He's at peace. And I give myself that thought. He's at peace. I need to be at peace. I need to be at peace. You know, and I just take my time, talk to myself, befriend myself. Because when I go around my grandchildren and anyone else, but especially my family, I want to be all right for real. I like to tell my grandchildren, don't tell me you okay and you not. Don't let me ask you how you doing and you not. And so, I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to add, Marilyn, because what grief does is grief will cause you to be in guilt and shame. And that's a normal process of the brain to produce guilt and to produce shame.
Yep, and we don't want that. We don't have to feel that.
That guilt thing is so real because my son was, when he was gotten to the point where they kept saying there's nothing else they could do, Do you want to put him on a feeding tube? Do you want to do this? I didn't want to do anything because I knew my baby was going to be healed. I was saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost, preaching the God's word. It didn't matter how far he went down, I know God's going to heal him. But that wasn't God's plan. That was my plan. And so I had to readjust my thinking. I knew that God he wasn't doing anything against me. And I had to realize it really wasn't about me. So, yeah, it takes time and really thinking through it. My thought wasn't why me, it was why not me, but God, couldn't have been somebody else, you know?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so
Because you
guilt
thought
is
you was exempt from
associated to the
Yeah.
things that you can control.
Right.
Yeah.
What have I done? That's
Right.
what guilt
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Right.
What didn't I do?
Yeah.
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 Because I know,
What
like
didn't I
with
do?
me,
Yeah.
you know, I said, what could I have done
Done.
to
That's
to
right.
prevented this?
That's right.
And then I started questioning my parents, my
That's
motherhood,
exactly
my
right.
parentship, or whatever. You know,
Exactly.
and then I was like, I did everything that I was supposed to do. I did everything that I knew how to do. You know, I used all the tools that God gave me to use.
That's beautiful.
You know.
Yeah.
I think it might be, is it normal?
It is.
That you first feel, what did I do? What
Absolutely.
have I done?
Absolutely.
And then I moved from there to, I wanted to know how much I loved him. I stayed there a long time. Then I moved, you just go,
Yeah. You go
Yeah.
through so many different phases, and as I said, everybody doesn't go through, we talk about the denial. You learn that in Grief Share, the denial, the shock, the anger, the depression, and then the reframing, the acceptance process. Everybody doesn't experience those. It looks very differently. And so it's just it's complicated. I like to call it, it's complicated. It's a complicated grieving process. And based on where your brain has been, that is how your brain is going to interpret the situation. Yeah.
very good, very good. I hope you all have enjoyed being here with one another, encouraging our audience, because I'm hoping every mother has subscribed. And then I'm also hoping that they know that it's okay. Grieving is okay. But smile on Mother's Day. It is your day.
You know what I always say? It's okay not to be okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
It is. It's okay it's okay not to be okay. It is. It's okay not to be okay.
And so you guys have learned how to be a mother from your mothers and the mothers before, but also understanding that love that you have for your child, that is going to continue. That journey is going to continue.
If I can say one other thing, I want to thank my new sister for teaching me how to say. I have 3 children and one has transitioned. Thank you. Thank you for that. I mean, that you don't even know how many times in a conversation I'm silent because I don't know what to say or how to say it. But now I know how to say it. I have 3 children and one of them has transitioned.
Right. Because you do. You do.
And also remember too that as human beings, we struggle with this grief. We struggle with transition. And so we don't know how to articulate. We don't know what words to say. And it's okay. Sometimes you just need to sit and not say anything. Sometimes you might need to just grab your sister's hand. Yeah. So there's not a perfect way.
And they keep showing me we have about 3 minutes, so I want everyone to just jump in. I especially want to thank Yolanda because, whether, we know it or not, I'm telling you, it's therapy, it's everything, when you're even ministering and talking to someone else, because I can get right in with you when I'm talking to you, because I feel what you feel. So come on, let's go. And when you laugh with me, you helping me. So we helping one another. We're helping one another. And everyone, let's reach out. I love the fact that I don't care when you run into a mother. That mother can be black, white, Spanish, short, tall, whatever. All of us mothers that have children that have transitioned, there is a sisterly bond that's just there. I mean, it's there.
I think that's why we gelled so quickly.
Yes,
I mean, because what we had 4 meetings,
right.
but
This is an awesome group of ladies, and each one of our experiences have been different, but I think it has helped us. I don't talk in groups like this. I talk with my family. I'll talk with an individual one-on-one, but I don't do the group thing.
It's a safe space.
Yeah. And they've made me feel safe.
Because and you know what, she is so right, because Mildred is so right, because I've been in a room of grieving moms, and it's like a funeral all over again, and I told them, no, it's no growth, because at some point it's about you, but you have to learn, you got to learn how to live in it.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to live.
You do,
in it.
and we're going to be moving because they're showing me 1 minute. They're telling me to wrap it up. Subscribe. You have to subscribe. Put in your comments if you want Dr. Darcy's information. I'm going to tell you, we all need a therapist. We all need one. Or let's say this, it can help us. We don't have to have one. So I thank you for tuning in. And remember, this is Marilyn Parker Ministries YouTube channel, and we will be back. Subscribe and subscribe. Thank you.